Of all the seas in the world, none bear a greater reputation for being haunted than the Sargasso. Within this impenetrable waste of rank, stinking seaweed, in places many feet deep, are collected wreckages of all ages and all climes, grim and permanent records of the world's maritime history, unsinkable and undestroyable. It has ever been my ambition to explore the margins of this unsightly yet fascinating marine wilderness, but so far I have been unable to extend my peregrinations further south than the 35th degree of latitude. Among the many stories I have heard in connection with this sea, the following will, I think, bear repeating. A brig with 12 hands aboard, bound from Boston to the Cape Verde Islands, was caught in a storm, and, being blown out of her course, drifted on to the northern extremities of the Sargasso. The wind then sinking and an absolute calm taking its place, there seemed every prospect that the brig would remain where it was for an indefinite period. A most horrible fate now stared the crew in the face, for although they had food enough to last them for many weeks, they only had a very limited supply of water, and the intense heat and terrific stench from the weeds made them abnormally thirsty. After a long and earnest consultation in which the skipper acted as chairman, it was decided that on the consumption of the last drop of water they should all commit suicide, anything rather than to perish of thirst, and it would be far less harrowing to die in a body and face the awful possibilities of the next world in company than alone. As there was only one firearm on board, and the idea of throat-cutting was disapproved of by several of the more timid, rat poison, of which there was just enough to go all round, was chosen. Meanwhile, in consideration of the short time left to them on earth, the crew insisted that they should be allowed to enjoy themselves to the utmost. To this the captain, knowing only too well what that would mean, reluctantly gave his consent. A general pandemonium at once ensued, one of the men producing a mouth accordion and another a concertina, while the rest, selecting partners with much mock gallantry, danced to the air of a popular vaudeville song till they could dance no longer. The next item on the programme was dinner. The best of everything on board was served up, and they all ate and drank till they could hold no more. They were then so sleepy that they tumbled off their seats and, lying on the floor, soon snored like hogs. The cool of the evening restoring them, they played pitch and toss and poker till tea time, and then fooled away the remainder of the evening in more cards and more drink. In this manner the best part of a week was beguiled. Then the skipper announced the fact that the last drop of liquor on board had gone, and that according to the compact, the hour had arrived to commit suicide. Had a bombshell fallen in their midst, it could not have caused a greater consternation than this announcement. The men had, by this time, become so enamoured with their easy and irresponsible mode of living that the idea of quitting it in so abrupt a manner was by no means to their liking, and they evinced their displeasure in the roughest and most forcible of language. The skipper could damn well put an end to himself if he had a mind to, but they would see themselves somewhere else before they did any such thing. It would be time enough to talk of dying when the victuals were all eaten up. Then they thoroughly overhauled the ship, and on discovering 6 bottles of rum and a small cask of water stored away in the skipper's cabin, they threw him overboard and pelted him with empty bottles till he sank, after which they cleared the deck and danced till sunset. 2 nights later, when they were all lying on the deck near the companionway, licking their parched lips and commiserating with themselves on the prospect of their gradually approaching end, for they had abandoned all idea of the rat poison, they suddenly saw a hideous, seaweedy object rise up over the bulwarks on the leeward side of the ship. In breathless expectation they all sat up and watched. Inch by inch it rose, until they saw before them a tall form, enveloped from head to foot in green slime, and horribly suggestive of the well-known figure of the murdered captain. Gliding noiselessly over the deck, it shook its hands menacingly at each of the sailors, until it came to the cabin boy, the only one among them who had not participated in the skipper's death, when it touched him gently on the forehead, and stooping down, appeared to whisper something in his ears. It then recrossed the deck, and mounting the bulwarks, leaped into the sea. For some seconds no one stirred, and then, as if under the influence of some hypnotic spell, one by one each of the crew, with the exception of the cabin boy, got up, and marching in Indian file to the spot where the apparition had vanished, flung themselves overboard. The last of the procession had barely disappeared from view when the cabin boy, whose agony of mind during this infernal tragedy cannot be described, fell into a heavy stupor from which he did not awake till morning. In the meanwhile, the brig, owing to a stiff breeze that had arisen in the night, was freed from its environment and was drifting away from the seaweed. It went on, day after day, and day after day, till it was eventually sighted by a steamer and taken in tow. The cabin boy, by this time barely alive, was nursed with the tenderest care, and owing to the assiduous attention bestowed on him, he completely recovered. I think this story, though naturally ridiculed and discredited by some, may be unreservedly accepted by those whose knowledge and experience of the unknown world warrant their belief in it.